meeting.
And we are now recording this call,
thank you.
This call as well. Sorry, go ahead.
And please be sure to *6 to mute yourself if you're not talking with this many participants. It can get pretty noisy if everybody's mic is live. *6 to mute or unmute. All right, do we have Nancy on the line for our project update? Anyone from CenturyLink?
I see Nancy. She might actually be muted right now.
Nancy, *6 to unmute. Is there anybody on the line from CenturyLink?
And she just left the meeting. She might be having some technical difficulties.
Having some difficulties.
Hopefully she'll sign back in.
Wes, are you on the call?
I see him as well, and he is also muted.
Oh. Wes, can you unmute yourself? *6.
The CenturyLink technical team, ladies and gentlemen. Just kidding.
Sherry from Entrada was on.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello.
Well, that's disappointing.
This
Not
Nancy,
that you're
can
on,
you hear
Carrie.
me now?
Oh, there you are, Nancy. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I was on my laptop and I was trying to, I unblocked the microphone, but you still couldn't hear me, so I dialed in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we are up to item number 3, project update.
Okay, so I've met with the majority of the PSAPs that are going through January and February. I did want to let everybody know that we are installing 3 meg circuits at each site. I know some of the PSAPs were a little surprised when they got an email saying that their order had been keyed. So I'm tracking those, make sure that they get installed and don't have any issues.
Okay.
And so far, the network infrastructure, we are a little behind schedule, but we anticipate that we'll have all the circuits installed by the end of this week, and then we'll begin our end-to-end testing. So we'll be ready for the first cutover in January.
Okay.
Nancy, have there been any additional changes to the schedule?
We have pushed Aurora out just 2 days due to the delay in the network infrastructure. So they're going to be migrating January 9th instead of January 7th, but all other dates will remain as is. We gave ourselves a little cushion between the first one and the second.
Great, thank you.
You have anything else for us, Nancy, on the status?
No, I think we're okay. So far, so good.
For the group, does anybody have any questions or comments?
I just have a question. So this is Kimberly. Nancy, you said you've been working with all the PSAPs that are cutting in January and February?
Correct. And then I'm going to start meeting with the March folks.
And that includes doing another walkthrough, determining the demarcation, placing all the orders. So for the group, those PSAPs would include Aurora, AdCom, the Bretza PSAPs, Longmont, Boulder County, Boulder PD, CU, Broomfield, Douglas County, Parker, Castle Rock, Weld. Those are all of your January, February PSAPs. So all of those have been revisited, site visits, demarcation, rack install, everything has been identified, and you're done on all the preliminary stuff for those PSAPs?
Yes, yes. And then Aurora, we've actually been meeting weekly just, since they're the first to go.
Okay, and they have Aurora, at least the PSAPs in January, have the deliverables of the project plan, the cut, the IP, so they can be configuring their firewalls?
IPs not quite yet because those are also going with the 3 meg circuits. But as the 3 meg circuits are getting installed, then yes, we're sending them a drawing with the IPs and all that rock.
Yeah, this is Rob Greer with Aurora. We did get our all of our hardware installed for our primary center yesterday. And my only concern is, I mean, that we're going to be doing testing on the 7th, and then we're going live on the 9th. But I was informed that we did have some cushion room there between the first, which is us, and the second install. And Entrado seemed to be pretty confident that it would go well. But just having 2 days is a little concern to me.
He's talking about that the pre-migration testing is scheduled for January 7th and then the migration January 9th.
Yes.
Yeah, but doing the end-to-end testing on the network infrastructure, we feel will eliminate any issues or concerns prior to the 7th. All that will be worked out. And then the 7th will just be placing calls. It's making sure that they come in as they're supposed to.
So that what you're doing on the 7th is just the final stage of the testing. There's actually testing going on ahead of that.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments for Nancy on the project update?
I guess I just want to make sure that none of the PSAPs that are cutting in January or February disagree or feel like they don't have their walkthrough and that they're feeling pretty confident where they are since they are cutting soon.
Agreed. So do speak up now, please.
Yeah, this is Rob again. Yeah, I feel confident. I mean, we got the hardware installed, and our backup center was delayed a little bit due to that we needed needed some additional equipment. I guess a PGM or something. I mean, as long as all the end-to-end testing is all done prior to the 7th and everything goes good on the 7th, we should be good. Just cutting it close.
Okay. Thank you, Rob.
Rob, did you say that Aurora is using the PGM? You're not doing the direct SIP?
We're doing the direct SIP at our main site, Talons, but we're doing the PGM at the backup center because it's not a direct node. It's just a remote site.
Oh, okay. I understand. Thank you.
Any others that are converting in January or February? Anybody else on the call? How do you feel about how things are going? Okay, maybe none of them are on. I don't know. Or they're happy.
So this is Patty. Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, you are, Patty.
Okay. I don't know if you wanted me to get into a couple things now or some of the things that we had on the checklist. It kind of goes along with this, but we actually had a little bit more concerns on the Entrado side with the testing of the calls. So I can either wait.
Well, I think we're about to move into the discussion item spreadsheet. So if you want to kind of combine the two, I think that'd be fine. And Kimberly, do you want to take on the discussion items?
Yep, absolutely. We can do that. And if we want to start with Patty, your concerns, that's perfect. We'll just plug away on that. So go ahead.
Well, like we talked about 2 weeks ago, we had some concerns about the call routing, and that wasn't necessarily where it was going to go to busy out necessarily, but how the call routing was going to impact the CPE or Viper and how that was going to handle the call routing to the endpoint. So in a call that we had with them last week, we might have talked about this at another meeting, but I didn't remember. CenturyLink confirmed that unlike the camera trunks and the legacy system that we have today, where an assigned number is assigned to each one of those trunks that come into a PSAP. We're going to have one number called a pilot number, and they'll be able to test just one trunk. So they see all of the lines coming into one PSAP as one trunk. If I'm misstating this, somebody from CenturyLink can certainly chime in. So we thought, okay, so that means we'll only be able to test one line. How do we test all of the lines? And in talking through it a little bit, Intrado said that they could simulate some load testing by doing a busy out on whichever lines we choose, and then have that call routed to the next alternate PSAP that we've designed for our call routing. So that's a pretty significant change to what we have today. But when we got more into the Intrado side and how that was going to work, well, the first thing was that we didn't have any project manager assigned for this migration. Now, we do have a call later this afternoon with a project manager, and hopefully we will get a timeline or a schedule for all of the things that are related to the Intrado side.
So, Patty, can I just jump?
About that.
Patty,
Yeah.
can I just jump in really quick? So let's just kind of break these down one at a time, and that way we can get responses. So the busy out of the SIP sessions, I want to dive into that a little bit. So one number tied to many SIP sessions behind that one number. So the information you receive from CenturyLink would be that you can call and place one test call. You couldn't load the circuit to confirm you've got 10 concurrent SIP sessions and the 11th one rolls. And the response is that Intrado could simulate that to simulate a busy out. So they could truly test your full SIP sessions and then roll. So unlike today where we can manually call and load the system, we can't do that anymore?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
And the concern was that didn't even come up through Intrado. They came up through us. Like, well, how do we test this then? Because, I mean, their response was basically, trust us. This call will be delivered as designed. It's all back office work, and it's all going to be seamless. Well, we know that when we cut over from Viper, which was probably 4 or 5 years ago, we had to do some additional testing, so we're kind of going to dust that plan off and test using that pilot number and doing some load testing and figuring out which PSAPs we're going to do that on and where it's going to get routed to. Testing VoIP, testing wireless, the digital logger, the CAN, ANI, ALI spill, all of that stuff was at least initially not on Intrado's radar to be tested.
So I guess I would anticipate on the cut plan is a test plan. Nancy, do you guys not have a test plan where you're walking through and confirming the proper number SIP sessions are configured, confirming ANI-ALI, correct ANI-ALI display? So I can't imagine a cut without a test plan.
Yes, we do have a pre-migration test plan.
Okay, has that been shared with those agencies that are cutting in January?
Some of them, not all at this point, but I'm happy to, I'm doing follow-up calls to make sure that their site requirements are complete, and I'll make sure that they have a copy of that test plan.
Okay, and can you also send me a copy of that so we can get it, review it, and post it as well?
Of course.
Okay.
Well, and some of that test plan will have to include some coordinating on the PSAP end because you're going to have people out in the field, especially on the wireless and VoIP, with different carriers making calls in just to test. So that, I couldn't tell you if that's going to be part of their requirement, but it certainly is going to be part of ours.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that and bring it up at our next meeting. I believe that the pre-migration test plan is utilizing those test numbers that we asked for you to provide, the POTS numbers. But that's a good point about the wireless.
And it's my understanding text will stay the same, but it's probably worth a test as well. And then the other part of this is, I'm not sure what Aurora is, but I mean, we're a multiple hosted PSAP. I'm not sure if Aurora is a single.
They're single.
Okay. We really have to think through how our calls will be routed whenever we do that test plan. I mean, we kind of have a round robin today. So on the multiple hosted sites, I think you have to do a little bit more thinking about where those calls are going to go, as opposed to somebody where it's a single that basically you're going to have one place to roll over.
Well, I guess that's on your side of the demarcation, though, right, Patty? And so from our hosted environment as well, I mean, so there is a lot of work that is on our side of the demarcation. Okay, the call comes in and making sure that the CPE is configured correctly or there aren't any changes. And if you want to make changes from your current environment and you want to use this cut as a time to make those changes, then I would agree. And testing and making sure the call is getting where it needs to go. If you're in a hosted environment, then that's on our side of the demarcation.
Yeah, it just gets a little, I don't know how to explain this without drawing a picture, but for instance, we have the SO going to Longmont and Longmont going to the SO, and then the other two. It'll make a difference. That's why we're going to have to load test, say, Longmont and BSO, and then see where it goes. I mean, there's just different testing that we'll have to do that day to make sure that how we want this configured for routing is going to work. That's all. And yes, it's on our side, but we'll have to do it that day for testing.
Well, aren't there two levels? Isn't it rolling between our two demarcation points and then rolling within our network?
I don't know, Joe. I just know that how we have it configured today will require us to do some different types of load testing in combinations to see how that's going to work, just to make sure.
So, Patty, have you guys received that pre-migration test plan from Nancy? Are you one of the ones who have received it?
I am not sure. I know that Hank had something that he had on the call for last week.
Yes,
so
Hank has it.
He may. Hank has it? Okay.
Yes, he does.
Okay.
And Nancy, how fluid is that test plan if a PSAP identifies, listen, I want to, at this point, go ahead and do testing for my text to 911, and at this point I want to do testing, I want to simulate a busy out at the SO to make sure that when those 911 SIP sessions are full, that it's rolling to their backup, because that is on your side of the demarcation, even though the point of PSAP routing is on our side of a hosted system. So can a PSAP authority insert and modify your pre-migration test plan to include other items that they want to make sure that we're testing during the cut?
Great question, and I've jotted it down, and when we meet in a couple of days, I'll bring that up.
And when the other thing on the central...
Just real quick, when you meet internally, Nancy, or?
Yes, okay. We're meeting internally 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay, and then Patty, the question that you were bringing up on a project manager, do you want to talk about that before you move on?
Well, apparently we've been assigned one since last Thursday, and we have a call this afternoon.
Are you talking about a project manager to help manage and navigate your CPE changes, or a project manager? Okay.
Yes, on the Intrado side.
Okay, yeah, so that's separate from this project, really.
Yes.
I mean, okay.
And the other thing I just wanted to confirm with CenturyLink, a while ago, Wes said that they were going to maintain the Make Busy switch, and I guess I wanted to confirm that.
There's a piece of hardware that is dedicated to that Make Busy environment. And I want to say it's the PDU. Ed, am I right on that?
Oh, hey, Kimberly. Yes.
Even better, Wes.
Sorry, I had a heck of a time getting on this thing myself. Anyhow, yeah, Kevin is off on that, and he's supposed to have populated the answer to that. And in Brett's case, I believe he might have talked about that last week with Hank on the call. But there is a switch there where we can have some options there on that Make Busy switch, and how do you want those calls to be forwarded to? Either another PSAP or internal to Bretza or not, and that sort of thing. Whereas before, you went to the legacy 911 routers. This time it's going to be going through to the network where it would be forwarded on. And Kevin's got a more detailed grasp of all that, and we'll be glad to populate that answer for you guys very shortly.
Yeah, he's on vacation this week.
Okay, so I just want to summarize and make sure I heard it correctly. So yes, we're going to continue the Make Busy application hardware in the new environment. And PSAPs authorities through this project will be able to identify how that switch operates. Where does it go? So we're able to populate and answer that question during the cut because we'll have more options in this environment than we did in the legacy. Am I understanding correctly?
I could not have said that better myself, Kimberly. So that's all part of the whole thing of looking at, the kind of routing flexibility that we have, and the Make Busy switch is, part of that cafeteria of choices.
So if I understand, this isn't a physical switch. It's not an application they have to go into when they. Well, how is it a software application they have to use to Make Busy, or is it an automatic thing that happens?
It can be a piece of hardware, physical switch back in the back as well.
And I guess my question is, if there are things like a power outage that's requiring, that all the systems are down in the particular PSAP, or, some kind of an isolation of a central office isolation serving the PSAP, is that something they can trigger still from the PSAP, or do they have to do it through some other way?
Well, the network monitoring can look at that if there's an electrical issue there, where the network can see that that's an issue, and it can go to some of these pre-programmed alternate routing scenarios. Of course, I'll have Kevin really answer that in more detail. If there's a local power outage at your PSAP, what impact might that have? But, you guys have got all kinds of power backups, for instance, at the sheriff's office and et cetera, as well as, we have that in our system as well.
Yeah, I guess my question, Patty, tell me if it isn't relevant, but I'm thinking of the kind of situations in which a PSAP will go down or people would evacuate and need to be, doing the Make Busy switch. And when they're doing that, I don't know if it implies in a hosted system either, but are they able to, is there a situation in which they wouldn't be able to communicate to CenturyLink that they needed to be made busy, that CenturyLink wouldn't be able to monitor and know to do it anyway?
Yeah, I think for that question, if that particular PSAP becomes a smoking hole in the ground and that piece of equipment no longer exists, how are those calls going to be handled that should be rerouted at that point? Is that kind of what you were getting at, Joe?
not necessarily a smoking hole in the ground.
Well, yeah, but essentially that piece of equipment is no longer functional for whatever reason, power outage, smoking hole, whatever it is.
Or the link between it and CenturyLink.
This is Ed with Lita. Sorry, I had some trouble getting my mic unmuted. My understanding of that PSAP abandonment module is it will emulate the effect that you would be seeing anyway if you lost power or your devices were down. So the end effect is the same whether you manually trigger that pad device or you actually lose connectivity to your devices.
And that's my understanding as well. So it triggers it, and then the routing takes place at the selective router, the rerouting, because there's a lot of different programmings that can take place in this system. But I'll put down an action item, Wes, to have Kevin maybe walk through this on our next call. I just don't know if we'll have time to get answers back before some of these PSAPs cut. So we may need to do this in a couple of phases, Wes and Nancy, to have this as a follow-up item to get back to those PSAPs cutting in January so they understand the pad device and the functionality that's being offered and the programming. And then we'll populate.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Thank you.
Well, let's have Kevin follow up in good detail here on your Q&A list here as well. But yeah, the gentleman, I'm not sure who that was, answered that in more detail last time. The network, Joe, does see that when the calls aren't being delivered, if there's all those alternate routing scenarios that it will start sending the calls to. I believe Kevin did discuss this with Hank in different scenarios, both within the network and with how the Viper has the capability to also overlay some alternate routing scenarios as well. I was on that call in details.
I don't think it was the make busy switch.
No, but it was the alternate routing. Yeah.
Yeah, that Entrado could busy out to test. So it wasn't specifically the make busy switch that we're all familiar with.
Okay. But Kimberly, yes, we'll have Kevin and back this up in more detail on this list here, so everybody can see it in the interim.
Okay, and so I flagged it that you and Nancy will also get the information from Kevin over to the PSAPs that are cutting in January, and also we'll populate the spreadsheet so everyone has that.
Yeah, number 71, yes.
Perfect,
correct.
Thank you.
And then we will be willing, or certainly offer whatever test plan we dust off for the field testing and the pilot number routing and VoIP and wireless and all that good stuff too.
Yeah, Patty, so I have that as an action item that Nancy's following up internally about how much can a PSAP authority modify their test plan, because it'd be great if you had best practices and we were able to insert on line 22, this is a great place to do this type of testing, or if all the other testing needs to happen after their standard test process, their test plan. So either way, in whatever you guys develop, it'd be great if you can share that document out as well. But hopefully we can just insert it into one master test plan that we can all work from.
Okay.
And Patty, I did cut you off before. Did you have, I know that you're working with an Entrado project manager for your end, your CPE project migration side. Did you have other ESInet items you wanted to bring up for the group?
I don't think. I think that was it for now.
Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll just go back up to the top of the sheet. And so for the group to see from Aurora, we already received an update from Aurora. So item number 38, their cut date's been moved just a couple of days. They were pending hardware. Wes had that expedited, and we received the report that hardware is on site. So that item is going to be closed out. Do we have anybody from Pueblo on the call today? So in our opinion, these items have received, we were asked the questions, answers were provided, we talked through it at the large group, and then we talked about it again. So I'm going to start closing these items out. I'm not sure if we do have somebody from Pueblo on the call, but again, concerns need to be discussed. So we don't want to close out anything that they feel is still open and not thoroughly discussed. So
Lori's here. I'm sorry.
Oh,
it
great.
took me a minute to unmute. I haven't had a chance to review that. I'll try to download those and take a look at them.
If you could, please, and then let us know if there's any items. You can just email me back on the item number or comments if you feel like you need to have more dialogue, additional responses from CenturyLink, whatever you feel is outstanding.
Okay, that sounds great. Sorry we didn't get to them first.
That's okay. So scrolling down to item 69, this is that SIP session overflow. And this specifically goes a little bit to what Patty was talking about with testing, ES trunks, capacity testing, etc. So we wanted to have further conversations about this week, which I feel we explored a little bit with Patty on how this is going to work. Does anybody have any other questions besides the response that CenturyLink put here in this box? Basically, the thumbnail version is if you exceed the quantity of trunks, the colors will get a busy. The question was, will that happen? And if it's configured to roll, if you have it configured where I have 10 simultaneous SIP sessions, that 11th 911 call is going to roll to your backup. Anybody have any questions on SIP overflow? Okay, and then the items that were brought up just now, there's some action items for CenturyLink for follow-up on those 2 items from Bretza. Does anybody have any other items they would like to add or bring up for the group that we can track on the spreadsheet and have CenturyLink follow up? While people are coming off of mute or trying to come off mute, I know today it does seem like it's lagging on that. Wes, we had a program manager flag here that CenturyLink was hiring a program manager and that you were going to provide us with the contact information. Did that person get hired and are they getting folded into the project?
Yes. She is coming on December the 23rd. I do not have her name. The hiring director is out of our federal office in D.C. I talked to him, but at the time 2 weeks ago, he had 2 choices, and anyway, I don't have her name, but she's coming on very shortly. She'll be assisting Nancy. Nancy will be here, and as well as a secondary person to help.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then we were also pending escalation points. So Aurora cuts, they have a problem. It's 2 a.m. We just want to make sure that we understand, besides calling the 1-800 number, if we're in this process of cutting escalation points. So obviously opening a ticket. With the group in Minnesota is the path that we're always used to going, but if we do have another project escalation point, we were going to flag that here. So that's also an open item I just wanted to bring up.
Gotcha.
Okay. Anybody have anything else for the discussion sheet that they wanted to bring forward? Okay. Bruce, I think we're complete on that then.
Perfect. I think the only other item that I wanted to talk about before we get to any other open discussion was the meetings in January. Did you ever hear back from the CenturyLink folks on that question that you had for them yesterday about rescheduling the second meeting for next month?
I didn't hear back because I failed to even ask the question.
Oh, okay.
So we'll ask him today.
So yeah, I think it sounds like a good topic right now.
I think so.
I will be unavailable for both meetings next month. I am going to be on vacation, so I asked Kimberly to chair them. The second meeting on the 15th, Kimberly is unavailable, so our thought was for next month maybe rolling both meetings together on the 8th, but that would mean a reschedule for the CenturyLink folks, so we wanted to find out if you would be able to attend the meeting on the 8th, and we would just cancel the meeting on the 15th.
So is that the pre-meeting then on the 8th?
Right. We would turn the pre-meeting into the month, the one meeting for the month.
Well, I don't see why not. I know that's going to be a pretty busy day, but let's put it down.
True.
It's got to be done. We're going to be all hands on deck there at Aurora, et cetera. So, man, that's...
Yeah, that's not something I had considered. Yesterday, when we were discussing it, we kind of thought that the migration would have been done the day before. So, with this new information,
you know what? Chris, it has to get done. So let's put it in there. And what time is that? The pre-meeting, is that still the 10 o'clock time frame?
That's at 10 as well. Yes.
Yeah, and Wes, if it's so crazy and busy and there's issues going on, I think it'd be great for this group to hear that too, just to understand. I mean, not to take a lot of your time, but if it's only 30 minutes for a quick status update, I think that would be really helpful for this group to understand, just to get those updates. So we'll try and make it as efficient as possible, even if that's the window that CenturyLink joins us is small. That's fine. So if, for example, you're like, we can't get on at 10, but we can get on at 10:30, we can just proceed with our items, and then you guys can jump on when you're available.
Yeah, but we will know that ahead of time because of all the other pre-testing that's going on. So it should never be a last-minute fracas to try to bring all this together. So I think we should be okay.
Okay. Great.
Great, thank you. And
So,
Daryl, I assume Daryl will send out those updates.
Yes, I'll take care of that.
Thanks.
Hey,
I'm sorry,
Daryl.
Kimberly.
It's a good
Yes.
one. I noticed this is the 8th has the pre-meeting on it currently on the
Right.
schedule, which for some reason I didn't decline. Usually I decline those, but I have it on my calendar right now. So I don't know, given the confusion that sometimes results from you updating these calendars, I'm a little bit afraid of making changes to the meetings, but I'll leave that to you and your Google Calendar expertise.
Yeah, I'll send out the update, and if everybody refrains from changing it themselves, that should stop the multiple notifications going back and forth.
Okay, is that what happens?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right.
Kimberly, did you have something else?
I was just checking the chat message, making sure we didn't miss anything before we
Gotcha.
moved on, but it was good. So sorry about that.
Okay, great. Awesome. So the last item, or actually two items, open discussion. Is there anything else that needs to be brought up at this time before we move into public comment?
Bruce, this is Daryl. I just wanted to point out a couple of things.
Yeah,
I did
please.
add a link to the grant page right from the ESInet users group page. So if you go to the I need to slow down when I say that. The ESInet users group page, look about halfway down the page, there's a link to the grant program page. And I wanted to point out there have been some updates to the grant program page. I've simplified the steps so it doesn't look so daunting. It's the same information. I just put it in 5 steps so that everybody can digest what has to happen for each 911 authority eligible project management fees. And then I also added a chart that showed status by step for each 911 authority in the state. So that's a way of keeping track of what you've done so far and what you need to do still in order to receive reimbursement for your non-recurring and project management fees. I've reformatted the FAQ a little bit, and I also added a copy of the standard grant agreement. This is a blank copy of the grant agreement. It's actually Adams County's version, but you can take a look at it. It doesn't really change anything except the name and contact information. As I mentioned in a previous call, if there is a desire by a 911 authority to make changes to the grant agreement, we need to get a red line copy of that from you as soon as possible, because that has to go through the State Controller's Office, as well as the Attorney General's Office and the Grant Manager here at DORA. And all three of those have to sign off on the changes before they're accepted. So make sure that you give yourself plenty of time for that, because that grant agreement does need to be in place before your migration date. Does anybody have any questions for me on those? And by the way, Adams County did provide us with a suggested change that was accepted. So I'll be putting a copy of that up here as well so that people can see that. The standard grant agreement that will be going out to everyone is the one that's here. But if you wanted to use the modified version that Adams County provided and got approved, that would also be acceptable.
I guess, Darryl, that would be my only question is, as some authorities are ahead of us, for example, on this because we've got some other pressing items and we don't migrate until September of 2020, you're just taking those versions, if they're approved, posting them there, and then authorities can pick version 1, 2, or 3 that they like better, that maybe fits them, or they can go through the process and request their own changes. That's acceptable?
Essentially, yes. Obviously, if one's already been accepted for one 911 authority, then it will be accepted for others. So if you wanted to use theirs, you could, or you can make your own red line changes and send those to us. If you do the latter, though, I'm just warning people to expect a delay. So make sure you get that into us with plenty of time, because it could take up to several weeks for that to go through the approval process.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Darryl, I did send my signed page in today.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Other thing I wanted to point out is on the ESInet users group page under resources, I added, right now it's just in there as a picture, cybersecurity support contact information. I'll put this in a better format. But I had a conversation with Mr. Eastman with DPS earlier this morning. He wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of cybersecurity implications regarding the migration to an ESInet, and I told him we've had multiple conversations about that, as well as testimony at the hearing and documents filed in the tariff negotiation proceeding itself. However, because the fact that CenturyLink is providing cybersecurity support for the network itself, and they are not providing any support for anything past the demarcation point into the PSAPs, I think it's very important for every PSAP to be aware of the implications of being connected to the ESInet and what the proper precautions are that they should take on their end. A lot of you have the resources and expertise to handle that, but if any of you don't, you should consider Mr. Eastman to be a resource for you to reach out to. I know one of the things that has been suggested, for instance, is having a firewall on your end. There are firewalls built into the ESInet itself, but there should also be a firewall on the PSAP side of the demarcation point. And so if you have any questions about cybersecurity precautions that you should be taking in the PSAP to protect yourself and your systems, please make sure to contact Mr. Eastman to talk about that and to get their advice on those topics. And that's all I had, Bruce.
Perfect. Thank you, Darryl. Does anybody have anything else on open discussion before we move to public comment? Okay. Open it up to public comment. Does anyone that is a non-voting member of the this committee have any comment or questions to make?
So Bruce, just going back just a little bit first, Lori Pins just sent a chat and asked if they recommend 2 firewalls, 1 per circuit. I think you could call Mr. Eastman and ask that question, but maybe the CenturyLink folks that are on the line today might have an idea of whether that's something they would recommend. Is a firewall necessary for each concurrent session, or is it possible to install a firewall to filter each concurrent session that you have?
That's a good question. I'll have Kevin address that, but I would think it would be a firewall for each span that comes in, not each session.
Right.
Right. And Ed, do you want to talk about how we're looking at doing our firewalls? That may be helpful.
Actually, that would be helpful, Kimberly. I know you guys are all over it. And Kevin has suggested to each PSAP out there in our discussions that it is prudent for everybody to consider having their own firewall for just the reasons that Daryl's bringing up.
Yeah, so I can explain what I know about our firewalls, and we're just going with the Intrado appliance for the DMARC on our side, so that will sit on the LIDA side in our case, connected directly to the CenturyLink firewall. So that will actually be under the management of Intrado, though.
But we're doing one per handoff on the ESInet. So, for example, we're going to have those physical appliances sitting 2 at Loveland and 2 at Fort Collins and 2 at Estes Park, because we have 3 DMARCs.
Yes, with redundant feeds from CenturyLink at each of those DMARCs. You're right.
So for a smaller PSAP, which most of the PSAPs are going to be, if you only have one handoff, and even if you've got 2 concurrent sessions, you still only have one connection that's carrying both of those concurrent sessions. You would only need one firewall on the PSAP side. Is that an accurate statement, Ed?
Yes, essentially you just need to match whatever CenturyLink's putting in place for their router and firewall. So if they've just got one, then that's all you need to take that into your environment.
Excellent, thank you. And I have also invited Mr. Eastman to join us for a future call. Maybe we can get him on in January to talk about what his recommendations might be.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Was there anything else in chat that we needed to address? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Does anybody have any additional items we need to bring up now before we end this call early? Significantly early.
This is Lori. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Lori.
Is it possible to get Mr. Eastman's contact information sent to us in case we do want to have a one-on-one with him about this?
Sure, I can send that out to the listserv.
That would be great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I think we will end the call early and give you a little over an hour back of your day. I want to wish everybody a very happy holiday, and we will talk next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Good luck to Aurora.
Yeah, good luck, Aurora.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.